A little bit late today. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Okay, so everybody is not thinking about the exam. That's fine. But today, we're going to start thinking about the exam. But before we do so, does anybody have any questions about anything? I really don't like these chairs sitting behind me. Anybody want to sit in the chair? Anyone have any questions about the coursework or the exam or anything before we start? So this is an exam revision exercise, what we're doing today. So if you look on Moodle, you'll see this exercise. It's called Identifying Objects, right? And there is a problem statement. Given the partial specification below, identify a list of candidate objects. This exercise is to be done in groups, and the specification is adapted from the book that we're using on object-oriented design. And then you're given a partial requirements specification, the drawing editor, which I've mentioned many times during the lectures. So that's not a complete requirement specification, it is a partial specification. So the drawing editor is an interactive graphics editor. With it, users can create and edit drawings composed of lines, rectangles, ellipses, and text. Tools control the mode of operation of the editor. Exactly one tool is active at any given time, and so on. So given this partial specification, you identify a list of candidate objects in your object-oriented software design. Does everybody understand the task in front of you right now? So this is going to be done in class today. And you're welcome to pair up with another person to do this exercise or do it in groups. Everybody, anybody have any questions about how to do this? Okay, you're welcome. I'll give you something, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes or so to do this exercise. And then I will go over the solutions in the class as well. And if you do have questions, please let me know at any time. Yeah, so go ahead and start. Just out of curiosity, does anybody have a highlighter I can borrow today, just for a few minutes? Does anybody happen to have one? I can use a pen, but it's kind of nicer with a highlighter. Yeah, can I borrow that? Extra points for you on this. Yeah, thank you. Remind me to give it back at the end, yeah. Is anybody lost? Does everybody know how to do this? This is a nice skill to have, by the way. It doesn't seem like it. Name? What's your name? Jesse. Jesse is on the right track. Yes, so we had a lecture on this. It's called Objects. Everybody remember the lecture on objects? So Jesse is thinking about that lecture. And if we pull up our objects and responsibilities, so it's going back to the objects lecture. What's an object, right? And there it is. I don't know if anybody can remember, but when I was giving this lecture, I said, please put a star on this slide or give it some special importance. So this is the exercise we're doing, identifying objects, guidelines for identifying objects. So given a specification, classes correspond to nouns, and so on. So good question, Jesse. Is that what you were thinking? Did I get my mind reading? Yep. Which one does what is not part of this exercise yet? That's the next exercise. So just identifying the objects and classes is this exercise. What they do is the next exercise. That's the responsibilities, identifying responsibilities. If everybody knew how to do this, the world would be a better place. The world of software would be a better place. And given the reality that software is everywhere now, then the world of software is everywhere. Did you have your hand up back there? Did anybody have a question? Okay. If you're unsure about something, you're welcome to ask questions as well, or make some comments. Everybody's working on their coursework secretly. You think you know how to do this? Think you know how to do this exercise? Hopefully we're going to go over the answers. This is very good preparation for the exam, by the way. If you're wondering about the exam at all. During the exam, you probably won't have this much time. Maybe. I suppose you could have this much time on the exam, too. Okay, everybody ready for how I would do this exercise if I were doing it? Anybody curious how I would do this? Should I see? I don't think it's very nice when it's dark. What do you guys think? Can everybody still see? Question? Can you see? Very good, very good. Can everybody see this? So how would I do this exercise? If I look at the guidelines, classes correspond to nouns, right? So everybody remembers the noun, the definition of noun from grammar school? Person, place, or thing? That's what I learned. So I'm going to look at the partial requirement specification and identify the nouns. Yeah? Using this highlighter that somebody generously is lending me. What's your name, by the way, the person that lent me the highlighter? Is this the wrong end? Oh, very good. Good start. So the drawing editor, right, that's a noun. I'm going to highlight that. An interactive graphics editor. Really, I mean, drawing is more of an adjective, right, than an editor is really the noun there, right? Graphics is more of an adjective. Very good question. Very good question. Why are you highlighting that? Because I'm following the guidelines. The guidelines say identify all the nouns. That's like step one. And it's a noun, isn't it? Yeah. So, and you're jumping ahead. So yeah, you need, I guess I'll also answer that question. You need a main program, right? So a good candidate is going to be called Drawing Editor as your main object. Don't you think? Do you think that would be a good candidate? So the program could be called Drawing Editor, but that's skipping ahead, but that's the answer, so to speak. Okay, users is a noun, right? Plural noun. Drawings is a noun, right? Plural noun. Lines, rectangles, ellipses, text, all nouns. Tools, plural nouns. Mode of operation, that's a tricky one. But yeah, and the way this word is being used, mode is a noun. It's a very strange one though. Mode of operation of the editor. There's the editor again. There's tool again, and there's time. Two kinds of tools. There's a tools again, selection tool and creation tool, right? I'll just put a little dot there for the adjectives. There's selection tool again. Drawing elements. So there's the another plural noun, can be selected with the cursor, right? That's a noun. One or more drawing elements again. Drawing elements again can be selected and manipulated. Selected and manipulated are verbs, right? If several drawing elements, there it is again, drawing elements are selected, they can be manipulated as if they are a single element. So we could, if we really want to take this to the extreme, we can highlight they. And then single element, right, single element. And there's elements again that have been selected in this way are referred to, as the current selection. So selection is a noun, current selection. There's the current selection again, indicated visually by displaying the control points so plural noun, for the elements, there's the noun again. Clicking on and dragging a control point, right, modifies the elements with which the control point is associated. When a creation tool is active, the current selection, so current selection, the cursor changes in different ways according to the specific creation tool, and the user can create an element of the selected kind. After the element is created, right, the element again, the selection tool is made active, and the newly created element becomes the current selection. Did I make some errors there? So that's like step one, is identify the nouns. Everybody with me so far? The energy level in the room is overwhelming. Okay, so now I've got my nouns. I'm going to identify the candidate objects. I'm going to go to the next stage, so to speak. So this space on this is quite limited. So candidate objects. Can everybody read that? So oh, I spelled it wrong. That's good. Candidate objects. Good start. So now I'm going through my list of nouns. Drawing editor. Graphics editor. So I mean, those are referring to the same thing, the drawing editor and the graphics editor, and those are good candidates for the name of the application. So rather than just writing down graphics editor, I'm going to choose, okay, drawing editor. That's what I'm going to choose for my list of candidate objects. Users. So I'm not writing down users. Remember the second guideline, use singular nouns by default. So a candidate object is going to be user in this case. Then we have drawings. So drawing, again, it's going to be singular rather than plural, because we don't use plural nouns in that way for our object-oriented design. So users drawings. Okay, then we have lines. So line, rectangle, and ellipse. Text as our other candidate objects. Can everybody read my amazing handwriting? I get lots of compliments on my handwriting, by the way, on a regular basis. Okay, so then we have rectangles, and then we have tools, right? It starts talking about tools. So we have tool there. We have selection tool. I'm going to write down selection tool because it happens, it's so important, right? It keeps appearing over and over again, selection tool. There's drawing, again, drawing elements. So I'm going to put down drawing elements. Selected with the cursor, right? One or more drawing elements. There it is again. It's already in my list, so I don't need to write it down again, right? so they is drawing elements again. So I don't need to add they, because it's the drawing elements. And they, again, is referring to drawing elements, so we don't need to write that down. That would be a very funny object, wouldn't it? They in your software. That would be pretty unusual. Single element. So single element, do I want to write down single element? Not really. I'm going to equate that to drawing element. I'm going to say that that's synonymous with drawing element in my case, in this case. I don't need to add single. And then elements. So elements in this case, again, is drawing element. I don't need to write that down. Current selection. So that keeps appearing. So I'm going to write that down. All right. Current selection can visually by displaying the control points. So control points, so I'm going to write that down as a singular. Control point. For the elements, there's elements again. So rather than writing down elements, I'm going to reuse drawing element, which is already in my list. Right? Clicking and dragging on a control point is there again, modifies the element that's already there. Control point is already there. Creation tool. So this, I'm noticing now there's tool, selection tool. Just for the fun of it, I guess I'm going to write this one down here, creation tool. Is that going to run off the space there? Can everybody read that? So creation tool is there. User is we already have in our list. Elements, drawing element is already in our list. Drawing element, selection tool is already in our list. Element is already in the list, and current selection is already in our list. Did I miss anything? There is one thing I didn't put down. Did anybody know what I didn't put down? I did miss something. Anybody paying attention? There's a kind of mysterious one in there. Has anybody ever seen the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off? It's very old. Anybody ever see that movie? Do you remember the scene where the teacher says, Bueller, like, I think he's calling out his name and there's just empty silence in the room, in the classroom? I think it's that scene. I think if my memory serves me correctly. I left out mode of operation. Let's talk about that one at the end, because that's a weird one. And then if I look, so that's the exercise. That's it. Like that's the answers. Those are the answers. I can look a little bit deeper though, and start to think like a soft. What's your name again? Ronak, the winner of the laptop sleeve. Yes, user would be an object. Yes, of course. And in fact, not only would user be an object, it's an object in every piece of software now. Because every piece of software has users, and they have to log in with their user information. So username, user password, those would be stored in the user object for every piece of software in the world, basically. Now, as sort of thinking a little bit ahead, that's the basic exercise, it's finished. But thinking a little bit ahead to the next steps in the object-oriented design process, let's look at these a little bit. So the drawing editor would be a good candidate for main, the main method. User, as we just mentioned, is everywhere. everywhere. That's an object everywhere. So, in fact, you might want to look, because you know that object is everywhere already, there are literally millions of those objects already. So rather than reinventing the wheel, you probably want to look for existing user objects that you can just reuse, right, rather than starting from scratch if you were going forward with this, with the implementation. Drawing is going to be an object, right? And there's something going on here, right? These are all related, aren't they? Those four. So these are all related somehow. You can see that these are all things that you can draw on the screen. So they're gonna be, in other words, they're probably gonna be part of a hierarchy, right? These are all connected. And there's going to be probably an object hierarchy, a class hierarchy here. But look, all four of these are going to be part of a drawing. So there's both a class hierarchy and an object hierarchy there, sort of staring at you in the face, just from the written specification. And the same is true for tool. Like there's a selection tool and a creation tool. Probably this is going to be a class hierarchy right here. Like a selection tool is a kind of tool, and a creation tool is a kind of tool. So that the class hierarchies are staring at you in the face, right, in the requirement specification. And look, there's one called drawing element, but I would say probably that line is going to be a kind of drawing element, rectangle is going to be a kind of drawing element, ellipse will be a type of drawing element, and text will be a kind of drawing element. Probably looking forward in your design. And then cursor, where are we gonna get that from if we were doing this in Java? We're not going to implement that. That's already in the Java library. There's already a cursor object, right? So you don't need to implement that, but that is an object, right? Current selection. Current selection is a little bit mysterious, but that could definitely be an object. I could also imagine an object just called selection, perhaps. And then it has an attribute called current, and it's either true or false, right? That's a possibility, right? Rather than having an object called current selection, I could imagine an object called selection that has true and false. And that's related to that mode of operation. Control point, right, is probably going to be connected to drawing elements somehow, right? A control point is going to be part of a drawing element somehow, right? Like lines have control points, rectangles have control points, ellipses have control points, text has control points. And if I want to, this is not going to be like, this is too advanced for an exam like this, for this module. But if I want to be super, super, like, anal retentive, really, really anal retentive, like super duper, I wouldn't use line. This is not part of the exam, by the way. I would use edge instead. Anybody know the difference between a line and an edge? Name? Jesse. So a line is infinitely long, right? It has no end. Like it has no beginning, it has no end, a line. An edge has a starting point and an ending point. So that's the difference. So you wouldn't use the word line, you would use the word edge. But that's beyond the scope of this module. And then this mode of operation is a mysterious one. That one, you know, for testing purposes, if you put that down, yes, you get your points. But in actual software design, there might be an object called mode or something like that, and then it would have an attribute that's something like current mode of operation, possibly. But this could also just be an attribute, maybe, of the drawing editor. Like I can imagine just, you know, something in the drawing editor that identifies a member variable in the drawing editor that just identifies the current mode of operation. Like, I don't know, input, output, drawing, and so on. Just a predefined list of modes of operation stored as a member variable, not necessarily as an object. It's more like one of those information nouns. Some of you might remember a slide that describes information nouns, and those are attributes of an object rather than an object in itself. Okay, any questions about that? Did everybody find that to be exciting and fun? Could anybody do this on an exam? Very good. Okay, we'll stop there then. If nobody has any, if you're happy and you have no questions, we can stop. Anybody that's unhappy and has questions and those sorts of comments can stay and talk to me. Yeah? So have a good weekend, everybody. Let me just, oh God. Thanks for the highlighter. Let me just stop the recording.